The topics of our services are sometimes suggested by a holiday, a date, or the season, by an event or a social issue that affects our fellowship and community, a concern for the world as a whole, or our growth as individuals. Our presenters today will bring together two ideas. In part one, Loretta Downs will talk to us about the why of expressing our values fully through our actions and relationships, which enriches us deeply and also leaves behind a legacy that will change the future of the world after us. And in part two, because next month, September, the cost of creating a will in Mexico will be discounted, Lorna Dean will present a brief slideshow to walk us through the how of leaving a legacy by sharing tangible assets. First, let me tell you about Loretta. She's passionate about improving the end-of-life experience. Her knowledge focused through more than 35 years of being a companion to AIDS and hospice patients, friends, family, nursing home, death doula clients. She's published many articles and books. She's been quoted endlessly, interviewed for videos, radio shows, and podcasts, and she's spoken to us several times before. So thank you, Loretta, for being with us today.
Thank you, Jane, and thanks for this invitation to live my mission, which is to create opportunities to talk about dying and death in positive terms. If you hadn't realized, we're all going to do it. So we might as well make friends with death. You know, in 1985, my first friend died of AIDS, and my exploration of death and dying began. Since then, I've watched thousands of people living the end of their lives, and I've witnessed both very hard and very gentle exits. One of the lessons that I learned from these teachers is that planning ahead while you're able makes a huge difference in how your life ends. It makes a difference in the quality of your death and the memory that you leave behind. You know, we're all the Olympians of aging. We're still here and upright. Yeah, I mean, all of us have lost people we love. One sadness today was a 49-year-old who's now in hospice care. You know, death doesn't come to just the old. So we really are lucky. We're the lucky ones. And we're still here and living a dream in Mexico, but we're also closer to the end of our lives than we've ever been. One of my 78-year-old friends recently told me he's been to 6 funerals this year. And he said, all my pallbearers are dead. I told him to make younger friends. Even after 10 years of being with dying and being president of the Chicago End-of-Life Care Coalition, working with hospices all over Chicago, I didn't fully understand why planning ahead was so important until the Thanksgiving after my mother died. I was 57, single, and without children. 12 of my closest family members were gathered at the table, from my 22-year-old godson on his way to Iraq with the Marines the next week, to my 92-year-old aunt, who was the last of my mother's 5 surviving siblings, who was almost all there. As I listened to Grace, it was, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I realized at that moment that one of us at the table will be the first to die, and one will be the last. Thankfully, my godson returned from Iraq, but my aunt did die 2 years later. At that moment, I also realized that I could be either first or last. And I began to have a panic attack. I was like, oh my, what am I gonna, and then they started passing the food, and I decided to return to the present moment, and I filled my plate twice. Maybe I went back for even thirds. But even here, you know, one of us will be the first and one will be the last. And each position takes a different bit of preparation. You know, the next time you're with one or more of the people you love, allow yourself a moment for the awareness that one of you will be first and one will be last. I guarantee you it will transform your relationships. It's very difficult to be angry with somebody you know doesn't have a lot of time with you. Just a moment of awareness. Let it build into you. You know, driving home that day, I thought, if I'm in a car accident and died suddenly, my sister would be in charge of everything, and she had no idea where my documents were, what my account numbers were, what my passwords were, and how I wanted my life to end. That, oh, I need to take care of that business. So I set Valentine's Day as a deadline, pun intended, and I completed my advance directives. When I did, I called her up and said, Dolores, would you be my power of attorney for healthcare? And she said, oh, Loretta, you're my baby sister. I don't want you to ever die. And I said, then you can't be that person, because under certain conditions, I would not want to be kept alive. So she wasn't number one on my power of attorney for healthcare, but she was number 3. And we had many conversations about what I wanted, what my values and beliefs were for the quality of my death. I put my July birthday as a deadline for completing my will. And before I did, I got a call from my financial manager asking to verify the beneficiary on my IRA. I said, it's my estate. And he said, no, you can't have an estate as a beneficiary. You have to name a person. Not remembering what I'd done 5 years earlier, I said, well, who's that? It was the man I'd lived with at the time and left 4 years later. He and his new wife would have had a vacation house on me. So I said, fax me that form. You know, I can promise you a whole new level of peace of mind by considering the value of your death and the effects it will have on the people who love you and the people who will need to care for you. You know, the people of Bhutan believe that if you contemplate death 5 times a day, would you give me my phone? 5 times a day, you'll be happy. And Bhutan is always at the top of the list of happiest countries in the world on the annual listing. It's also a poor country like Mexico. There is an app based on that philosophy. It's called We Croak. And for only 99 cents, it will send you a message 5 times a day. It says, remember, you will die. Open here for a quote. And the quote I got this morning is, life is too short to be lived badly. Devorah got a different one. She's also got the app. It said, if you're dead, you're dead. You know, this is just making friends with death. It's just like making friends with people. We need to meet her a lot. We need to make her part of our lives every day. She becomes less threatening and less scary, and we can talk about her more easily. You know, there's a lot of need in the world. We're very aware of it because of our internet connections, and we're surrounded by it here, our chosen home. We also see happiness here in the celebrations amid the suffering of poverty and lack. When the need is overwhelming for me, I think of this story. One night there was a storm on the ocean, and hundreds of starfish washed up on the shore. And in the morning, there was a little kid walking on the shore, picking them up and throwing them back one at a time into the ocean. And some old person came over and said, child, do you think you're making a difference? And the kid picked one up, and as he tossed it into the ocean, said, I am for that one. I can't help everybody, but I can help some. And we need to hold that, because if we get overwhelmed, we back away from the suffering. And it doesn't help us. In all the work I've done, I've learned that there are 3 immeasurables that are the roots of happiness: gratitude, generosity, and service. One begets the other. According to Elaine St. James from her book, Simplify Your Life, there is a self-expansive aspect of gratitude. Very possibly it's a little-known law of nature. The more gratitude you have, the more you have to be grateful for. I see heads agreeing with that. Generosity can be expressed with simply a smile. If you don't have a few pesos for a beggar, you can give them the dignity of recognition by looking at them, smiling, and saying gracias. you will feel happier than if you avoid the suffering and walk away. Even a street dog benefits from a gentle touch or a treat pulled from your pocket. Practicing gratitude, generosity, and service will bring you joy and peace and serenity. There is a website called gratefulness.org. You can sign up for a daily gratitude. I find it also one of those things that's transformed my life. People keep gratitude books. It's a practice, and I think it's an important thing to embed in our lives because I see and know the results of it. You know, the most common ideology of legacy is a person's tangible assets and possessions. Some people have a great deal to sort out. I often wonder what Elon Musk and Bill Gates' wills look like. They must be pages and pages. You know, singer Aretha Franklin, she died 5 years ago, and her 4 sons have been battling over her $80 million estate for 5 years. She knew she was dying. She had pancreatic cancer, and she still didn't update her estate plan, kind of like my IRA. You know, we all know someone whose 4th cousin got it all. Don't do that to the people you love. Take care of your business because it'll make you so happy to get it done. It's like your taxes, done. You know? And consider your executor carefully. I mean, I heard a story where the executor moved into the house that was left to a charity and didn't execute the will, and they can't get them out. So you have to, all these things take a lot of consideration. One of the candidates for Mexican president next year, Xochitl Galvez, is an indigenous woman who made a big success of her life. She said, in our indigenous culture, it is believed that the only sin that leads to hell is to keep more money than you need. You know, I wrote a story called Problems of Abundance that's supposed to be in the September LOHO. It's kind of about that. You can't give it all away now because you're going to need some of it, but you can plan now where to give it when you no longer need anything. So this is a booklet that's on a table outside from LCS. It's called Being Prepared for Life and Death Lakeside. It's a roadmap, and it explains the differences of planning ahead here versus north of the border. And you can get more at LCS, and Lorna's going to mail the link for the online people. You know, leaving a legacy is not only about asset protection. It's also about acts of kindness, both the invisible and the visible ones. You know, as elders, we have a responsibility to be role models for each other also. I had a doula client who was dying of cancer, and she stopped taking treatment. She didn't want to spend the end of her life going back and forth to Guad for chemo. And she gathered all of her girlfriends, and she put together a farewell party while she was still well enough to do it. She had it at Eve's, and her friends made paper flowers, and they had them in all the buckets around the pool, and they set up a throne for her at the entrance, and there was a table in front of her with treasures, books and figurines and little things, and there was a tree, a dead tree with little plastic bags with jewelry, and she told everyone to take something. And I got these earrings. I hardly knew the woman, and I will remember her until the day I die. It's these little acts of thoughtfulness and kindness that stay with us, and they're free. It's about how attitudinally we're not crabby and causing aggravation. We're generous with just our hearts. You know, we have a responsibility to guide the future generations too, especially the children. They're suffering terribly now, you know, trying to grow up in this modern world, searching for well-being. And we have it. And I'm not talking just about money. I'm talking about our values. One way to guide loved ones is to write an ethical will. If you don't know what it is, you can Google and get directions, but it's a document that passes on your values and moral philosophy from one generation to the next. You can make it as small or as large as you choose, but think about writing one, even if only for your own satisfaction. How did you get here so well? You know? Estate planning requires thought and understanding of the differences between Mexico and those north of the border, and Lorna's going to explain that in a little while, quite clearly. And you have to decide what and who do you want to leave what to? Oh, yeah. It's a process of discernment. It takes time, it takes making a list, and oh, it is so easy to put off. I'm a veteran procrastinator. I know these things. That's why I had my old boyfriend on my IRA. You know, people in relationships change. I just visited a best friend in California and asked him to review all of his documents because I'm on all of them, and his healthcare directives and will were last written 10 years ago. Half of his beneficiaries are either dead or he's no longer speaking to them. That happens. One of the 3 people on his healthcare directives is no longer able to make decisions for him. So please periodically check and update your documents if you've already done them. You know, years ago, I visited my friend Pauline after she downsized and moved to a condo. When I admired a painting I'd not seen before, she said, "Oh, I'll put your name on it for when the time comes." And I said, embarrassed, "Oh, no, that's okay. I didn't even like it that much." And she reached into a drawer and pulled out a sticker and took the painting off the wall, and it already had a name on it. So then I was a little relieved and also embarrassed, and I said, "Oh, that's okay." She said, "No, darling, we're not speaking anymore." And she put my name on a sticker and put it on top of the other name. So you can change your mind as long as you're able to. This is a gift. Don't put it off thinking you'll be better at it later. There's that sudden event that could happen and you make a mess. How many of you have cleaned out somebody's house after they died? Talking about messes, right. It is just an appallingly hard task. Uncomfortable at least. There is a book written in 2018 called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. Anybody know it? It sold 1 million copies, and now Amy Poehler, the comedian, has turned it into a TV series on Peacock, going through people's things. You know, we do need to laugh about death sometimes. I don't see her as that, you know, scary thing. I see her as this image of warmth and love and conclusion. The woman who had that party where I got her earrings, I went up and I said, "How do you feel about this?" And she said, "I'm happy. I'm going home." That's where I want to be at the end. That's where we all want to be, don't we? Yeah, going home. So cleaning out what you don't need or use now is one practice of letting go that prepares us for letting go of bigger parts of life, like hearing and sight, walking, consciousness, loved ones, and finally ourselves. The practice of letting go and grieving our losses is one preparation for being the last to die. I mean, I visit 90-year-old people in nursing homes and they say, "All my friends are dead," and I can't tell them to make younger friends. Just embrace the whole thing. It's all part of the same. You know, it's also an act of generosity and service to those in need to give away what you're not using and don't need. You know, charities always need financial support, and UUF is no different. Consider the ripple effect to future generations when you donate. Lorna will explain the details of why and how to do that. And if you're not interested, share the information. There are a lot of people who need to know this here, how to do it. Because the life that you make is not only yours. We're all part of everything. We're one in the sacredness of being alive. The only aspect of being alive that each and every one of us shares is death. And you can make yours a good one only by planning ahead. And that's how you live forever. Thank you.